I'm Natasha Kirchuk, and thanks for joining us from our studios in Israel. Coming up in today's newscast, the wife of the Israeli Prime Minister is facing some major trouble. Israeli doctors successfully cured the first ever case of Treeman syndrome, and we'll reveal the latest archaeological discovery made in the Holy Land. Stay tuned for the latest news in Israel. Reports are now coming in that the Prime Minister's wife, Sarah, is about to be indicted in the coming weeks. That means Sarah Netanyahu will stand trial, charged with misusing over $100,000 of government money for her own private housekeeping. These are rumors that many have been whispering for weeks, but now it's looking like Attorney General Avichai Mandelblit will be issuing the court indictment within the coming weeks. The charges include Sarah Netanyahu's alleged hiring of an electrician who turned out to be a member of her husband's own Likud party, as well as several counts of falsifying documents, lying about her expenses, and breach of trust. The Prime Minister's wife has denied any wrongdoing in the matters and took a private lie detector test just a few days ago, hoping to prove her side of the story. Lie detector results aren't admissible in Israeli courts, but clearly the Prime Minister's wife is hoping to show that she has nothing to hide. All in all, Sarah Netanyahu is suspected of misusing 400,000 shekels, close to $112,000 of government money. Well, the families evacuated from the Amona outpost earlier this year have been stuck in limbo for months now as they wait for the government to build the new Amichai settlement. Well, now it looks like they've just gotten a whole lot closer to moving into their new homes, and joining us in the studio with the details is ILTV's Aaron Porras. Now, Aaron, what is the latest news with this story?
So as you just mentioned, the Amichai settlement is a response to the long-awaited settlement to be built for the families who were evicted by from the Amona settlement last year. And these 42 families from Amona have been waiting for the settlement, which would be the first new settlement in the West Bank in 25 years.
But clearly there's been a lot of controversy around this, evacuating them in the first place.
There's a ton. I mean, in the first place, it was a controversy because the Amona settlement was built on privately owned Palestinian land, and of course, because part of the eviction was forcible, right, unfortunately. But, now the issue really is the fact that we're building a new settlement, and that has its own controversies. But as you said, they're just waiting on red tape.
Right. So when are they expected to officially begin building?
Well, $15 million have been approved to build the settlement. And so really they're waiting on breaking ground at this moment. They're just waiting on some final authorities and approvals from the civil administration, I'm sorry. And then that could come within the next week.
Which is much sooner than I think many people expected.
Absolutely.
So let's take a look and see what the details are.
The evacuation of Jewish residents from the Amona outpost made headlines earlier this year, a grim reminder of the dilemma facing Jews hoping to settle land legally possessed by Palestinians. But after 25 years, the Israeli government has just approved funds to commence construction of the state's first new settlement, Amichai, which would be the new home for the Amona evacuees. Things hit a snag a few months ago, though, when budgetary concerns brought construction plans to a standstill, and for a time it looked like the money just wouldn't come together. But after careful negotiations, Israeli Interior Minister Aryeh Deri has just agreed to transfer over $15 million of state funds, giving the green light to resume construction. The government's approval and transfer of money is a massive step forward for the Amichai settlement, though one hurdle still remains. Construction will first need to be legally approved by the civil administration in the West Bank, and until then the Amona evacuees aren't allowed to settle in the temporary housing units nearby. But already Prime Minister Netanyahu has thanked the government for moving forward with the plans, while watchdog and human rights groups are denouncing the government for continuing to confiscate Palestinian land. I guess we'll just have to wait and see if Amichai clears the final approvals.
Well, we've been following the crisis brewing in the West Bank city of Hebron, where a group of Jewish residents have seized control of a contested building near the Cave of the Patriarchs. The IDF was ordered to evacuate the families today by force, but now it looks like the squatters have just bought themselves another week to sort it out. Back in July, nearly 100 Jewish settlers illegally took over the building, which is just around the corner from the Holy Cave of the Patriarchs. They claim the building is rightfully theirs, but Palestinian landowners and rights groups immediately petitioned the courts, forcing the settlers to present legal proof of their ownership. No such documents have yet surfaced, and just last week the courts declared that the settler families would need to leave the building or else be evacuated by force. But this isn't the first time this contested building has made headlines. A similar court decision evicted another group of Jewish squatters back in 2012 for the exact same reason. The army was geared up to remove the settlers by force today following a week-long grace period when they were supposed to leave peacefully. But the Jewish families have just managed to stave the evacuation for at least another week, with a petition to Israel's High Court of Justice claiming that the missing documents aren't required to prove ownership in the first place. Palestinian rights groups are only intensifying their claims, demanding the squatters be removed immediately. Word is that the government has been trying to avoid the ugly sight of another forced evacuation, but with the clock ticking, there's not much time left to find a peaceful solution. Over the past few weeks, dozens of construction groups have been moving to the border of Gaza to begin a major and controversial project. The year-long job, worth billions of shekels, is to create an underground barrier around the Gaza Strip, and it's already underway. Well, back with ILTV to tell us more is former Senior Air Force Commander Colonel Kobi Regev. Now, Colonel Regev, let's begin with the obvious. The wall is clearly meant to prevent terror tunnels. That's why it's underground. How is it going to do that?
We should look at this wall not just as a wall, more like a multi-layer system that combines technology, mainly underground, a concrete wall with the sensors, with a lot of technology inside, and above ground, a lot of soldiers and abilities to confront any enemies and any threats engaging in this area.
Right, and obviously a lot of this technology can't really be revealed or spoken about clearly. But the point is there is this technology that exists there so that if there is any threat, soldiers are there on the ground to immediately deal with it. Now, Hamas in Gaza clearly must be threatened by this because it not only hampers their military capabilities, but all of the wasted funds that have essentially gone into these tunnels are now being completely threatened by the existence of this wall.
Right.
Are they going to attack construction crews? Is that something that Israel has to worry about?
We believe that they will do some effort in order to delay the building of this obstacle. The chance that it will lead to an armed conflict, in the Middle East, there is always a chance. I think it's low. The motivation of the Hamas to start a war or to engage with Israel over this, I think it's not relevant. They will use their effort, their armed capabilities, once they will understand that there are some kind of a threat to the regime, to the political leadership of the Hamas. And once they will feel that they can improve their situation in the Gaza Strip by inflicting a war on Israel, they will do it. It means that if they will understand that they cannot pay salaries, they are in some kind of isolation in the Gaza Strip from a diplomatic point of view, then they will probably try to do something, and when a terror organization have capabilities, they might use it against Israel.
So I guess the big question here is, will there be another war with Gaza in the near future?
Well, I believe that in the near future, there is no reason from both sides to go to war. And the importance of the war that it takes the capability, the military capability, which the Hamas, it was a long effort to build these tunnels. It's like when they build the rockets, and we have an answer, technological answer, in the name of Iron Dome, and we deny those capabilities.
Yeah, it's essentially an answer to this problem.
Yes.
All right, well, thank you so much for joining us, Colonel Regev.
Thank you very much, Natasha.
Well, Gaza is in the midst of a crippling energy crisis right now, one that leaves the ordinary citizens of Gaza with only a few hours of power a day. Well, now there has been at least a small bit of relief to the humanitarian crisis, and with us to explain is ILTV's Brett Allen Smith. Now, Brett, What is going on in Gaza right now?
Thank you, Natasha. Well, as we've seen in the past, the situation in Gaza is just getting worse and worse over the last few months. Now, the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank has been levying massive sanctions against Hamas in Gaza, cutting electricity, refusing medical payments, denying just all kinds of aid in an effort to weaken Hamas rule in the Strip. And that's because the PA President Mahmoud Abbas is trying to force Hamas to the negotiating table and hopefully get Hamas back under his control. Unfortunately, of course, it's the citizens of Gaza who are trapped in the middle. But now there's been at least a small ounce of relief. Egypt has just fixed some of its electrical lines and they're sending power into the Strip. Now, it's not enough to bring Gaza back to its proper levels, but at this point, even just a little bit is going to go a long way there.
Right. Well, we've seen reports that Gaza usually only gets somewhere between 6 and 4 hours of electricity a day, which is just crazy. And especially in the midst of a very hot summer, as we all know, it is hot here. I'm sure whatever that they can get from Egypt will certainly have an impact.
Absolutely. And let's not, of course, forget that relations between Egypt and Hamas are extremely touchy. Now, these lines that Egypt has managed to restore, they've been known to fail constantly in the past, and they require constant maintenance from Egypt. The lines have been totally down for the last 2 months, and even now they're only working at half capacity. But if things stay as bad as they are now, then Gaza may really find itself depending on this Egyptian aid, as you'll see right now in the report. With conditions plummeting every day, the citizens of Gaza are finding themselves with fewer and fewer options. This is a humanitarian crisis at the focus of several international organizations. Just last week, the new chief of the United Nations, Antonio Guterres, visited the region, appealing to Israeli and Palestinian leaders to lift sanctions against Gaza in hope of alleviating the suffering. And the energy crisis may be the most severe problem of all, leaving the average citizen of Gaza with only a few hours of electricity per day. President Abbas has been pressing his finger against the crisis, cutting payments to Gaza power generators, and even asking Israel to cut their payments as well. To put it in perspective, the Strip usually requires around 400 megawatts of power to operate at full capacity, but lately it's only received about a third of that. But now, and at a very critical time, Egypt has managed to fix some electrical lines sending power to Gaza. They've been down for months, requiring constant maintenance, but now Egyptian energy has just begun flowing back into the Strip. At this time, the lines are only operating at about half capacity, but with the state of things in Gaza, even a drop in the bucket may be life-saving.
Well, for the first time in Army history, the IDF has just begun special training for female soldiers to serve in tank units. The experimental program was launched in secret, and it's now nearing the final stages of its training phase. If the experiment is deemed a success, it could mean the very first all-female tank crew in IDF history that's prepared to carry out security operations in the field or even during war. 2 weeks ago, 15 outstanding female troops from the Infantry Corps were selected to participate in the program following 4 months of gunner training. Though the identity of the recruits is still a secret, the Army has spent the last weeks monitoring their abilities to perform advanced tank maneuvers, load heavy shells for combat, and operate the heavy artillery. Now, to put it into perspective, even something as simple as hitting a tank's brake pedal requires an enormous effort of strength, one that clearly the Army believes the ladies of the IDF are up to. As one soldier overseeing the training noted, they made no big deal of it and were more interested in questions such as which badge and beret they end up having if they become Armored Corps soldiers. While the Army is taking all the necessary training and precautions to make sure these girls have the right stuff, but for now, Israel's military leaders are cautiously optimistic about the experiment's imminent success. Now, you've probably never heard of the Treeman syndrome disease, and that's because there's only ever been one case of it in history. Now, for years, a Palestinian man living in Gaza known as the Treeman has been seeking a cure for his horrific disease, and it looks like Israeli doctors have just found that cure. Mohammed Talouli is 42 years old and is currently the only known case of the rare disease in history. These large growths you're seeing on his hand are the result of complications from the human papillomavirus, a condition that is often cancerous but never quite like this before. Dubbed the Treeman, Talouli has been frantically searching for medical treatments for years, first in Gaza, then in Egypt and the West Bank, but doctors were completely stumped by the bizarre growths, unable to find even casual mention of a similar condition in medical books. Well, finally, in a treatment coordinated with a Palestinian authority, Talouli has just been operated on by Israeli doctors in Jerusalem's Hadassah Medical Center. And it looks like the procedure was an astounding success. For the first time in years, Taluli can finally move his hand freely again and is now receiving further Israeli meds to finish off the disease for good. Israeli doctors had literally zero precedent to go on, but they've just cured one of the rarest diseases on the planet. All right, now get this, there's just been another treasure trove of history discovered by archaeologists in the city of David. Israel's Antiquities Authority has just uncovered dozens of clay seals dating all the way back to the time of the first temple.
In my hand, I'm holding small pieces of boule, basically small pieces of clay, which were stamped with a seal in order to seal documents or containers which held products which arrived in Jerusalem, and when arrived and opened, the seal was then broken. The earlier seals have on them pictures, while the later seals have on them names. Many of the names that are on the seals we can recognize, for example, from the biblical texts.
And it's these biblical names that shed light on a very unknown part of Israel's ancient history. Experts now believe that the names found on these seals, some of which are spelled slightly differently from their original source in the Bible, confirm a theory held by many historians.
And since we're talking about the period after the destruction of the Kingdom of Israel, it's possible that this indirectly refers to Israelite refugees who were named after the kings who later arrived in Judah searching for a place to live after the destruction of the Kingdom of Israel.
That's right. It's possible that over 2,000 years ago, Jerusalem opened its gates to Jewish refugees and asylum seekers. This discovery comes at a time when Israel and many other world nations are facing their own dilemmas with refugees from abroad, which just goes to show that even ancient history can be incredibly timely. Well, if there's one thing Israelis love more than their hummus, it's their shopping. A few weeks ago, the country was on cloud nine when the American discount store Target made a limited time offer for free shipping to the Holy Land. Unfortunately, it looks like they really underestimated Israeli shoppers after getting over 20,000 orders in 2 days. Target has just canceled the vast majority of its shipments. In a cancellation notice sent to thousands of Israelis, the border-free customer care division of Target apologized for the mass cancellations. In a dark day for shopping, thousands of disappointed shoppers read that their orders would not be arriving due to the much higher than anticipated response to the border-free shipping promotion. So that's why my hair straightener hasn't gotten here yet. But Israeli media is already speculating that the problem goes deeper than just supply and demand. With a $75 cap on tax-free imports to Israel, it's possible that Target neglected to include customs and tax fees into their giveaway. In fact, one Israeli customer who only ordered $25 of American candy found his order had been canceled because he needed to pay over $140 in import taxes alone. Many customers had been told Target would pay all customs fees with their orders, which could mean the country's red tape and tax code is what botched the deal. But whatever the case, it means we'll have to find another way to sneak all those Sour Patch Kids through customs and into my belly. Well, some things will always be in demand, but if you're a business that sells consumer goods, how can you make sure that your products are the ones that are being bought? One Israeli company called Pepperee can help your sales page stand out above all the rest. And joining us now in the studio is CEO and co-founder of Pepperee, Ofer Yorvexel. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me.
So what exactly is Pepperee? And it's an interesting name, by the way.
Yeah, actually Pepperee, it's a frog from Peru.
Interesting.
It's the name of a frog. And what's unique about frogs that they can only jump forward,
right,
which is what we want to do to our customers, to help them move forward with their sales.
Oh, wow. Okay, so that's a very interesting choice. And so essentially you help people with their sales platforms, right?
Yeah, but we are focusing on B2B, on business
B2B,
to business.
Okay. So tell us a little bit about what makes your platform different than other kind of, assistance that exists for these types of consumers.
Yeah, actually, in order to explain what makes it unique, I need to take one step backward to explain what our customers are facing. And they're facing tremendous change today in the market, in retail. Everyone understands it, that retail is facing, and retailers are typically the ones that are selling consumer goods, used to be at least. And our customer, which are the ones that are selling, that are producing or distributing those products, suddenly are facing with a situation that it's no longer one channel to sell to those
Of
retailers.
course, and there's so much competition on the web.
There's so much competition over the web, and the sales process became much more complex.
So this is where you guys come in,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, and we help them basically to manage their sales processes across those channels, whether it's over the internet, whether it's through marketplaces.
How does it work? How do you make sure that one of your clients' platforms comes up and is the first to be seen?
No, we are not helping them in that respect. We are helping them in streamlining and managing better all the different sales channels that they have. We're not helping them in the marketing aspect of it, more on the sales side of it.
So how did you come up with this idea?
Actually, it's we used to be a different company. We used to be a company called Warranty.
Okay.
We did the warranties in the cloud. This is the way the company started, and we had patent around that. And then while managing the warranties, we realized that it was the beginning, 2009, 2010 was the introduction of iPads. Mobility started to take place in businesses, and this is how, and actually the company is very strong in mobility.
Interesting. So tell us a little bit about, a success story. We're kind of running out of time, but I'd like to hear an example of one of your clients.
Actually, we just got an order from Rip Curl, if you know, which is the surfing company. We worked with them just in Europe for the last 4 years, and now we just got an order to expand with the business with them to Australia, which is where their headquarters is. Beautiful. This is just one example, because we have a lot of land and expand type model that we start in one country and expand. Allmark is another great example for that.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for coming in and telling us about this new platform, and I wish you all the success in the world.
Thank you very much.
So if there's one thing you shouldn't mess with, it's my coffee. That's something Israel's Cofix coffee chain has actually just learned the hard way when they upped the price of a cup of joe from 5 shekels to 6 shekels earlier this year. The company saw huge losses after the 1 shekel price hike, and now they're considering returning the price right back around. For those who don't know, 5 shekels for a cup of coffee was the perfect gimmick, because there's always an extra 5 shekel coin in your pocket somewhere. But 6 shekels, sure, it's just 1 shekel more, just 25 cents, but finding that extra coin in your pocket, if it's even there, well, it looks like this wasn't just some little dilemma. That little extra shekel was apparently enough to drive off customers by the thousands. After the price hike, Cofix reported a loss of over 60,000 shekels. That's over 12,000 cups of coffee. And shares have dropped a staggering 2.4%. This was apparently enough to grab the company's attention. Now Cofix is reconsidering bringing back 5 shekel coffee. The CEO of Cofix is reportedly worried about the dropping sales and is investigating matters himself with the industry's most experienced experts. Well, hopefully we won't have to wait any longer for a fine cup of 5 shekel coffee.
Enroll in eTeacher's online Hebrew courses and quickly discover that it creates the deepest connection to Israel that you could ever imagine.
And now for our Hebrew word of the day. When businesses like Cofix go back to a previous business model or Target apologizes for making promises that they just can't deliver, it's usually because they regret whatever decision was hurting them. So today's Hebrew word is something everyone has felt at least once, charata, meaning regret. We've all been in that situation where we say something we wish we hadn't said or missed opportunities we wish we hadn't ignored. And they're all forms of charata or regret. Now, charatot or regrets are about as common as the mistakes that people make. But the trick with the charata lies in how you use it. When someone tells you they live bli charatot or without regrets, they're really just saying that they've learned what they needed to learn from the experience and moved on. So just like Cofix, and just like Target, sometimes you let those charatot go and live a happier life. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the weather forecast. Tonight should be partly cloudy to cloudy with a low of 76 or 24 degrees Celsius. Tomorrow will be clear and sunny and with a drop in temperatures, but it will still be pretty warm out, and the high will sit around 88 or 31 degrees Celsius. All right, that's it for today's news. Today's exchange rate is 3.58 shekels to the American dollar. Remember to sign up for our daily newsletter at alltv.tv. I'm Natasha Kirchuk, and thanks for watching.